Hey Facebook, it's Michelle Crawford here from Being More Human, and massive hi. I don't think I've said hi to everyone in the last week or so. We've had a fairly full-on week and it's been fantastic, and I just wanted to share with you really briefly about the conference that we had on Tuesday, and then I wanted to talk about avoidance and why we avoid things, how we avoid things, and what we can actually do to stop doing that, because I think that's a really interesting topic, and I know in my life it's been super helpful to work through some of that. The reason I chose avoidance to speak about today is because I was driving home after a meeting that I'd had with an old friend this afternoon and talking about his business, and coming home, and I know that what I have to get done is our billings, and you would think that doing your billings for the month is a good thing, and it is. It's very therapeutic, can I tell you? But in this instance, I didn't want to do it. I didn't feel like doing it. And so now here I am on a live stream talking about avoidance. So that's the link. If you wonder how I come up with the topics that we speak about here on our Facebook Lives, usually it's some kind of experience we've just had, some type of inspiration, something that I hope is going to help people if I share it. And that's the way that we come out with the content. But just briefly, I wanted to share with you about the Diversity and Inclusion Conference that Heidi Pollard from UQ Power and myself, through our brand called Human Power, put on Monday this week, I think, or Tuesday, earlier this week, anyway. And I just wanted to let you know what a fantastic group of speakers that we had, but the thing that really stood out for me in the whole experience was, given the topic was about diversity and inclusion, it was very important for us to be able to create an experience where people genuinely felt included in the actual day. So we were just as focused on, probably more focused actually, on the actual experience that someone would be having sitting in the room, and how they would feel that they were drawn into the conversation, and how they felt that they were included in the fun stuff, in the thinking stuff, in the panel, in a range of different things that we had. So I think for me, it was one of my favorite conferences that I've ever been to, because I genuinely came away feeling like that. And I don't think it was just me at the end of the conference, because there was an awful lot of hugging and exchanging of contacts and et cetera, within a room of people that effectively, didn't know each other too well, if at all, at the start of the day. So just a massive shout out to all our speakers that came up from Sydney and our local speakers, and the contribution that they made to the Diversity and Inclusion Conference. So for me today, in thinking about this idea of why we avoid things, the diversity and inclusion can be a good example. There's big things in the world that it's easy for us to feel like we can't make a difference, and that we can't do anything that is inspiring to either ourselves or others. It's easy to feel like that big topic of diversity and inclusion, and how people feel like they're part of our society, it's easy to feel like that's someone else's job. And to me, the link with today's topic is super important, because in my world anyway, if I'm passionate about something, if I truly believe in that thing, if I am very aligned with whatever it is that I'm thinking about or talking about, it's very easy for me to create action. In the situation that I'm, really passionate and really into something, I will easily create action. But equally in my world, if there's things that I either don't like, take too much of my time, are too complicated, hurt my head in some way, then I will avoid them. I will try not to do them. I'll create every kind of excuse under the sun for why I won't do that particular thing. And just as an example, it's an example that some of you might be able to connect with, but until the last 3 or 4 years, I always waited more than 12 months to do my tax. So I was always, a whole financial year behind in doing my tax. And when I started really looking at that behavior, because I'm also someone who looks at something that I'm doing and I go, that's not right, that's not going to work, and so I change it. So when I started looking at that, just this delay and the whole avoidance that I had around doing my tax, I then set myself a challenge. So I set a goal to say, that I'd get my tax in within 2 months after the end of financial year, each year since then. And that's been a really motivating thing for me to do. And now, instead of, it also helps that I don't do my own tax, that someone else does it. But instead of sort of dreading that this thing's coming up and it's going to hurt my head and I don't know how to manage that whole process and what to do, for me, I thought it was very useful to turn that into a game and into a challenge. So I want you just to have a little bit of a think about your life and your world, because there's plenty of things that we avoid. We can avoid exercise, we can avoid different tasks, a whole range of different tasks. We can avoid people in our life. In fact, sometimes we actively want to avoid people and, take a whole different route to somewhere so you don't run into that person potentially. So there's a whole bunch of things that we actually can avoid. And what really fascinates me is that most of these things are things that we are going to do at some point or another. So you can avoid your tax, for whatever the time period is, and then you have to do it. Otherwise, you'll get fined and different things will happen. You can avoid the person, but at some point it's inevitable you're going to run into them somewhere. It might be at a work function or, in the shopping centre. You can avoid exercising. You can choose to sit on the couch or to stay in bed. You can choose a whole range of other choices. But the thing about avoidance is it brings certain consequences with it. And I know in my life, if I'm looking at something that I avoid and I really actively want to make a difference, I start to think about the consequences. So, what are the consequences if I choose to sleep in every morning instead of do exercise or go to boot camp? And you might be perfectly happy with those consequences, but I promise you that doing no exercise and not focusing on your fitness probably won't bring you the sort of consequences that you want to have in your life. It won't enhance your life, and there's a high chance it'll make it worse, and you'll get some kind of illness or health-related challenge in and around that. But how I'd like to link all this together is for you to think of the idea of the things that you avoid, and then I want you to think of the first element of conversation that we had about that alignment, about how passionate you are about something. Because very often the tasks or the people or the things that we avoid are the stuff that we're not passionate about. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. It still needs to be done. It's still important. And one of my favourite tips for doing the stuff that you don't like doing is to literally put it at the top of your list. So if the thing that you like doing the least is, if you run a business and the thing that you like doing the least is marketing, as an example, you might have on your to-do list something about creating social media tiles. So if that was a job for you to do on that day and you really didn't want to do that job, it's likely to naturally float to the bottom of your list and to not get done, or to get done maybe, last thing or push to the next day. So quite frankly, the easiest way to do those things that you might want to avoid is to do them first. And that's why I like exercising first thing in the day, because if I do it first thing in the day, I know that it's done. It sets my day up for the rest of the experiences that I want to have. Whereas if it's kind of hanging over my head and I'm thinking, I have to get home and I have to do this walk, and I'm talking to myself in this kind of needy type language, then I'm much, much less likely to do it. The super interesting thing for me about avoidance is when you think of what you're actually avoiding, it's not really the task, it's not really the person, it's not really any of those things. What it is at the essence, or at the core of the onion, if you like, I use that analogy a lot, what you're actually avoiding is you. And you're avoiding wanting to look at yourself and to look at your world and to consider where you are and to think about all of those different elements of things that you would like in your life. That's what avoidance is really about. It's really feeling as though it's too painful to take a really frank look at yourself, and so you implement a whole range of things, including, eating too much, drinking too much, any other kind of addiction that you can think of. And to me, that's fascinating. When you really work out, it's not the task you're avoiding at all, but it's you. It's the essence of who you are. And I think if you can look at avoidance through those eyes, then next time you're tempted to avoid something that's on your list, just really ask yourself, are you actually wanting to avoid you and who you are? And all you have to do then is make the thing on your list go to the top, like I said earlier, and you get it done first. And it's an amazing feeling if you can get those things done first up in the morning, in terms of how much achievement you feel that you might have actually got out of the day. So what I would love to say is that if you have a habit of avoiding things, and you would actually rather turn that avoidance habit into a habit of doing things, and doing things that are good for you and hopeful for you, I would like to invite you to jump on the link that's down below. And the link is to our 7 Habits of Hope program. And it's an online program. If you just jump in and have a look at the link, it'll give you all the information about what's in there. But what it is excuse me, it's a way for you to be able to focus and to customize in your world this idea of changing one habit at a time. And the program goes for 7 weeks, and you get a really beautiful workbook that comes with the program. And literally all you need to do is to click on the link, and then you click the Hope button at the bottom of the lead page, and then you pay. And it's under $40 a head, so it's a complete good value offer. Excuse me, a good value offer for you to be able to really focus on changing some of those habits that you might currently have, things that you're avoiding in your life. So good luck, and we'll see you inside the Facebook group when you click and join to become part of that program. Thanks for watching our offering today. See ya.